I discussed who is a yogi, and we are covering the path of Dhyana Yoga, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains all the qualities that a yogi must possess, which I have covered in the previous session. Furthermore, in the 6th chapter, Krishna clearly states that these qualities that the yogi possesses are the result of having been purified. So Dhyana Yoga is not for the beginner. It is for one who has already been purified by work and by knowledge. I've already explained that in chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, text 12, Krishna explains the hierarchy. So Krishna says, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasaj jnanad dhyanam vishishyate dhyanad sarva karma phala tyagas tyagat shantir anantaram. Superior, he says, to ritual is acquiring knowledge. And superior to knowledge, Krishna explains as meditation. And Krishna explains that even superior to meditation is to work in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, for that brings eternal peace. So the yogi who has all the qualities that were described in the previous session is now instructed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita how he should engage in Dhyana Yoga. And in describing how he is situated in Dhyana Yoga, Krishna starts and he explains by saying that first of all, it is very important that the yogi should go to a place which is isolated. So this is very important. If you are going to try to meditate where someone is watching the TV, where your children are pulling your hair and your ears, where your dog is licking your feet, so all these things will not work. Krishna explains very clearly that the yogi is one who should always concentrate his mind on the Supreme Lord who is seated in his heart. And to do that, he should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control the mind. He should be free from all desires and feelings of possessiveness. Yogi yunjit satatam atmanam rahasi stitah ekaki yata chitatma nirashira parigraha. So, to concentrate your mind always on the Supreme Lord, live in a secluded place and carefully control your mind. Be free from desires and sense of possessiveness. Elsewhere, we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Jana Aratir Sanshadi. He describes that one should live apart from the general mass of people. Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, and keep apart from the general mass of ordinary people, worldly people. Jana Aratir Sanshadi. We see that echoed here because they say, Krishna says here, that stay in a secluded place and carefully control your mind. Be free from all desires and feelings of possessiveness. It's very important to be free of desires when one is sitting for meditation, because meditation is impossible without having become free from desires. In the second verse of the sixth chapter, Krishna says that nahi asanyashta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Without being free of desires, one cannot become a yogi. So, having selected a place which is secluded and where he is free from mixing with people, being free from desires and feelings of possessiveness, he should lay kusha grass on the ground and cover that with a deer skin soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low, and it should be a holy place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and senses, purifying the heart, and fixing the mind on a single point. Suchau deshe, in a sanctified place, in a sacred place, pratisthapya stiram asanam, finding a seat which is comfortable and yet stable. Nati uchritam, nati nicham, neither too high so that there is danger of falling, nor too low that other things will fall upon you. So, chaila agnya, using a soft skin, soft cloth or deer skin. Kushotarama kusha, taking kusha grass, seated with single pointed mind, controlling the mind and the senses. One should purify the heart and fix the mind on one point. And then he explains that the neck, the body, and the head should all be straight. Samam kayo shiro grivam dharayam achalam sthirah. And doing that with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, taking a vow of complete celibacy, brahmachari vrate, one should meditate upon me, God, within the heart, which is the Paramatma, and make me the ultimate goal of life. Thus, Krishna says, practicing control of the mind, body, and activities with the cessation by concentrating on the Lord and bringing about cessation of self and of material existence, one should engage in meditation. So, you need to sit erect. Your vision should be with half closed eyes, focused on the tip of the nose. The mind should be unagitated, subdued, fearless. Meditate upon this Lord within the heart. And in this way, the yogi, the Dhyana Yogi, attains to the abode of the Lord. So, when you look to find the authoritative texts on yoga, it's very important to understand that the Bhagavad Gita is one of the important seminal texts on yoga. After that comes the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and then comes Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There are some mentions of the various nadis which refer obliquely to yoga, both in the Kathopanishad, in the Chandogya Upanishad, and specifically in the Yoga Shikha Upanishad, which is a much later Upanishad. And thereafter have come many other texts, that Hatha Yoga, Ratnavali, and so many others. And gradually, this process of meditation was integrated with another form of yoga, which was called Hatha Yoga. And this meditation, which Krishna describes here in the Bhagavad Gita, became known as Raj Yoga. So you had Hatha Yoga and you had Raj Yoga. Hatha Yoga was to perform various asanas. Initial text described 15 asanas, later text described 84 asanas. But these asanas were further modernized in current times by Kovalyananda and also by Krishnamacharya, by integrating Scandinavian gymnastic positions. And thus, posture yoga, as it is called today, is a very different from the ancient forms of yoga. But essentially, the Bhagavad Gita describes Dhyana Yoga, which is known as Raj Yoga. Now, because many of these Hatha Yogis were also ascetics, or they were also known as people who would perform great tapasya, standing on one leg with their both arms raised in the air. You will find even now, if you go into the Himalayas, these yogis performing all kinds of postures and maintaining them not for a short period of time, but maintaining a single posture for prolonged periods of time. These are mentioned in some of the Hatha Yogic texts, which point out that this is known as Asan Vijay. And people hold these positions for years together. And this causes, in fact, disuse atrophy of the limb. It causes contractures of the joints and causes many other medical problems. Therefore, Hatha Yoga by itself, before Kovalyananda and Krishnamacharya, were not popular and they were largely rejected. And you will see here that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly points out that this form of meditation is not meant for the ascetic. It is not meant for people who starve, nor is it meant for people who engage in overeating. So Krishna clearly says here, Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantam anashnatah na chati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva charjuna. There is no possibility of your becoming a Dhyana Yogi, Arjuna, if you eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. This is very, very important. Yogis who are united with God do not overindulge in the senses or do not starve their senses to the extent of falling ill. So therefore, temperance is a great virtue. And Krishna points out in the next verse that Yuktahara viharasya yukta chestasya karmashu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. He who is temperate in his eating, sleeping, working, recreation can mitigate all material sufferings by practicing this system of yoga. So Krishna does not advise overeating. He does not advise oversleeping. He does not recommend fasting. So he recommends a temperate existence so that one can use one's energy in sitting and meditating. It's very important to understand that this yoga is not the posture yoga. It is not the gymnastic yoga. It is not the yoga which is there in Hatha Yoga. The yoga which is described here, this Dhyana Yoga, this Raj Yoga, which is described here in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is similar to that which is described by Patanjali. Patanjali also describes the path of yoga, and he describes that first you must have yama or restraints. You must have ahimsa or non-violence. You must have satya or truthfulness. You must have aparigraha, or you should not be aspiring to possess other people's things. You should have ashteya, you should not steal anything. And you should have brahmacharya, you should have sexual restraint. Now, restraint is more important than observances, because what you don't do is more important than what you do. For example, there are very sinful people, some of them gangsters of the underworld, who, having engaged in all kinds of crimes, murders, and all kinds of sinful activities, then contribute to give the largest deities, the biggest Ganpatis, and they think they have performed great pious deeds. But what is the use of a tiger who fasts on Ekadashi when he actually goes ahead and eats a cow on Dwadashi? So, what you don't do is more important rather than what you do. So, it's important that you must have ahimsa, non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, chastity. You should have non-possessiveness or non-avarice. Then after yama, you go on to niyama, where you are pure in both mind and speech and body, where you are absolutely content or santosha, where you are engaged in austerity and asceticism and self-discipline, where you engage in the study of the scripture, which is swadhyaya, and you contemplate God, which is called Ishvara Pranidhana. But remember that when we come after yama and niyama to asana, there is only one line on asana in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It says, Sthira Sukham Asanam. That your asana, your meditation posture should be steady and it should be comfortable. So there is no 84 asanas. There are no various means by which you engage in prolonged tortures of your body. Very clearly, asana is that which is comfortable and which is steady. After that, there is pranayam, or focus on the breath. Then there is pratyahara, which is withdrawing one's awareness from external objects and turning your attention inward. Dharana, which is concentration, one-pointedness of the mind. And dhyana, which is truly observation of the thoughts that arise from the mind until they become silenced and lead to samadhi, which is the dissolution of self and the absorption with God. So you have in the Ashtanga Yoga process of Patanjali, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Krishna has simply focused on meditation. Patanjali came much later and he elaborated this in his Yoga Sutras. But it's very important to note, it is not a practice to overeat, oversleep, work too much, have too much recreation. But rather, if you eat moderately, if you sleep moderately, your working hours are not excessive, and your recreation can also be important. So, when that yogi, by this practice of this Dhyana Yoga, has controlled his mind and become situated on the spiritual platform without any desires, then that person is said to be having attained yoga. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanya eva tishtate nispriha sarva kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. And Krishna elaborates. He said, just as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, does not flicker, so also the yogi, the Dhyana yogi whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation upon the Lord. And this stage of perfection, Krishna says, is known as Dhyan, or it is Samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained by mental material activities. And with this, one is able to be experiencing divinity with the pure mind. For the mind itself is an obstacle to the perception and the experience of divinity. And having silenced the mind and rejoiced in the divinity, which is the core of one's being, you experience boundless transcendental happiness. And having thus been established, one never departs from the truth. And he thinks that there is no greater gain. He is never shaken even in the midst of greatest difficulties. And this, he says, is actual freedom from all miseries that arise from contact with the material world. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaiva atmanaman pashyam atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grayam atindriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitaschalati tatvatah yam labdva cha param labham manyate nadikam tatah yasmin sthito na dukhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidyad dukha samyoga viyogam yoga samgnitam. This is indeed freedom from all miseries that rise from material contact. So Krishna explains that abandon all desires that are born from the self, control all the senses, step by step become situated in a trance, and your mind should be fixed on divinity alone, on God alone, and think of nothing else. Wherever and whenever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So when you are in meditation, the mind will wander, and when the mind wanders, don't struggle with it, don't fight with it, don't wrestle with it, don't force it, but very gently bring it back to the focus of attention and control. And Krishna explains that yogi whose mind is fixed on me attains the highest happiness. He is free from all contamination of matter. He attains the perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the Supreme Lord. And this yogi, Krishna explains, is one who sees me in all beings, sarva bhutastam atmanam, sarva bhutani chatmani, ikshate yoga yuktatma, sarvatra sama darshana. He sees me in all beings, he sees all beings in me. Indeed, this Dhyana Yogi sees me everywhere. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati. Tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere and who sees everything within me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So that yogi who knows that the super soul, that is Paramatma, and I, within all creatures, are the same, he worships me and remains always within me at all times. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in their happiness and in their distress. Now, Krishna is telling Arjuna how to meditate. But Arjuna is certainly not without desires. He's full of desires. And Arjuna is not at all inclined to meditation. So he's disturbed. He says, you've given me a path which is impossible for me to follow. Chanchal hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyam nigram manye vayuriva suduskaram. My mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, O Krishna. It seems more difficult to control it than controlling the wind. And Krishna says, Asanshaya mahabhavo manah durnigram chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena chagriyate. It is very difficult to control the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and detachment. So this is very important, that to meditate is very difficult, but by constant practice and detachment, one can attain that state. I'm going to give you a tip over here. And that tip is, I try to meditate, but nothing happens. Well, I'll tell you one thing. You first have to silence the mind. So my suggestion is, if you're engaged in bhajan or kirtan, loudly in a dark room, with your eyes closed, or if you are engaged in chanting the Lord's name softly, just so that you can hear the sound of the name, and you do that long enough, from 2 to 4 hours, if you are able to chant, you should be able to chant, you should be able to meditate for at least 30 minutes at a time. You know, in the old days, there used to be, or even today in the racing cars, there is what we call as a supercharger. The supercharger is that it allows the car which you're driving to open its vent so that it can burn even more fuel, and suddenly it can take off and travel much faster. So also with the process of meditation, there is a supercharger to your meditation, and that supercharger to your meditation is chanting the holy name, singing the holy name. And the louder you do it, the more absorbed you are in the sound of the name. The vibrations of the name will remove all your mental disturbances. And when your mind is silent, you just remain seated with your eyes closed, and you will slip into meditation effortlessly, absolutely effortlessly. You will simply slip into meditation, and it will be the most natural thing in the world. So this will give you some taste of what Dhyana Yoga is. I think I will pause now, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Yes, sir. Good morning and welcome everyone to the session. The first question that we have is someone is asking, how is awareness related to a yogi?
Pardon?
How is awareness related to a yogi?
Related to a.
Yogi.
See, you have to understand something about controlling the mind. The mind becomes active when you move into future. What's going to happen to me? When you move into the past, oh, all this happened to me. And number 3, ab mera kya hoga? I, me, and myself. So when the mind wanders into the future, when the mind wanders into the past, and the mind is concerned with self, you are in deep trouble because you are entangled in your mind. But if you bring your awareness onto something in the present moment, which could be the sound of God's name when you're chanting, it could be the sensations of your breath when you breathe in and you breathe out. It could be the various sensations that are there in your body, itch which you are feeling on your back, a tickle which you feel on the tip of your nose. And if your mind constantly is observing for sensations on the surface of your body and within your body, this observance of mantra sound, this observance of sound, this observance of breath, this observance of sensations of the body, anchor your mind in the present moment. And when your mind is anchored in the present moment, the mind is inactive. Even if you do yogasana, posture yoga, with your eyes closed, and you perform your yogasanas, entirely focusing on the stretch in your muscles and your tendons and the bones and the joints, you will find that at the end of your hour-long yoga session, your mind will be silent and you will be able to sit still in meditation. So you have to inactivate the mind. This is constant practice. Abhyasena, abhyasena. You have to keep practicing how to still the mind. And if you can keep the mind in the present moment, that is called awareness. That is called mindfulness. And this awareness and mindfulness, by keeping it in the present moment, inactivates your mind. That is why awareness is so important for the yogi.
Thank you. Dr. Shantanu, the next question is, how does one know that one is fit for meditation?
To tell you the truth, none of us are fit for meditation. We have to make ourselves fit for meditation. So therefore, if you can engage in bhajan or kirtan, your mind will become silenced. Then with that silent mind, you can focus on your breath and the mantra in your mind alone. That is meditation. So when you supercharge your process, when you turn on the supercharger that enables meditation, by doing japa, by doing kirtan, you will be able to, at the end of that period, sit still in meditation. You can do this also when you engage in yoga asana, because when you engage in yoga asana with your eyes closed, fully focusing on the movements and the stretch of your muscles and tendons and joints and bones, and you'd perform all the yoga asanas slowly with full attention, you will become fit for meditation.
Thank you. The next question that I wanted to ask you, Dr. Shantanu, was what are the physical benefits of meditation? We know it calms the mind, but physically, how can one experience the benefits of meditation?
There are many, many benefits of meditation. Maybe I should one day take a presentation which I have on meditation. But the benefits are, first and foremost, it brings about immediate reduction of stress. So your nervous system, particularly central nervous system, is constantly discharging impulses, keeping your muscles tense and tight. That is why sometimes you're doing nothing, but yet you feel exhausted and having muscular pain, because your mind has been so disturbed that it has been tightening the muscles through stress. So your stress becomes relieved through meditation. Not only that, there occurs a balance between your in your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system, which is not otherwise under your control, consists of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. This deals with all the visceral organs, including your digestive processes, your breathing, and so many other, your heartbeat. All of these are affected and regularized and harmonized. There should be a harmony between your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And when this harmony occurs, your heart rate will come down, your blood pressure will come down, your digestive system will begin to function normally. Your right side and left side of the brain will harmonize and integrate with one another more efficiently. There are so many benefits for meditation. But I must tell you a story of a meditation teacher who was teaching people how to meditate. So, what the teacher did was he gave them first a 1 hour talk on all the benefits of meditation. Your emotions will come under control. You'll become more intellectually sharp. Your vision will improve of life. Your, your planning and your strategy will improve. All this will happen through meditation. Then he said, all of you, please write down which benefits you are you are concerned about, which you want to have. So everyone wrote on a piece of paper the benefits they hope to gain from meditation. Then he led them into another room where there was a Havan fire. And he said, please put all your papers there. And now that you have given up all your hopes and desires of what you want to get from meditation, now you will be able to meditate. So meditation should be completely unmotivated. All spiritual activities must be unmotivated. If they are not unmotivated, that motive will be a material motive, and it will prevent you from going on the spiritual path. Is that clear?
Finally, Dr. Shantanu, in the house, you mentioned a couple of things that one needs to do while meditating. It should be a quiet place and things like that. So, in the house, is there a particular area one should look at while meditating? And, I was reading somewhere that one should meditate in the same place every day. So, does that also help?
Yes. Keeping the temperature cool. So if you can have about 18 degrees temperature, preferably in an air-conditioned room which is soundproofed, when you can sit down in front of the deity, preferably an image of Krishna, if you have a agarbatti which has been lit to add a gentle fragrance to the air, please remember that you must wrap a shawl around yourself, because when you meditate, your basal metabolic rate goes down, and therefore you land up with a lower body temperature. Therefore, you must wrap yourself in a shawl. So you are in a cool room, but still you are well wrapped in a shawl. So you're warm in a cool room. then you must have a comfortable place to sit. If you can't sit cross-legged, don't worry. Sit in a chair. If you need a cushion, please use that cushion. So, with all comforts, make sure that there is no one disturbing you in the house. Put your phone on silent and leave it outside the room. Have a babysitter look after your children or grandchildren. And then you can sit after doing japa. You take some time at the end of your japa session or at the end of your bhajan session or kirtan session. You then can focus on meditation.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Shantanu. These are the questions that we had this week. If you want to talk about what you will be covering next week, you can let us know.
So, Krishna is asked by Arjun that what if I take up this path you're recommending, this spiritual path, this path of meditation, this path of whatever else you're recommending, working with devotion, pursuing spiritual knowledge. You do all these things, go for meditation, and then I can't continue with it. So since I can't continue with it, I will fall away from that path. So what will happen to me? I'll be neither here nor there. Dhobi ka kutta, na ghar ka, na ghat ka. Right? In the world, they look upon me as a spiritual person. And in the spiritual world, they look upon me as a material person. So, kya karu main? So, that answer to that is what we shall cover next time. What is the fate of a yogi who falls away from the path? Does he benefit? Does he lose out? Is there a way ahead for him? This will be answered in the next class.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Shantanu. Looking forward to the next class. And thank you so much.
Right. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Thank you.